Hi there, and here we are at Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and I am your cowboy, Sensei Al Bob, and this is my new cowboy hat, and it's good to see you. And I want to start off with welcoming everyone to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob, and I want to tell everyone that don't believe anything I say. This is just I am just your sensei griot. And what is a griot? A guy who tells you a story, but tells it to you in such a way that it represents, meaning it kind of, you know, turns you into somebody who looks like that. Yeah, there you are. Doesn't that look like me? Hey, here I am. So what's it going to cost? And what is the cost? And how do we measure the cost? Yep. And what else? A good example is always follow the money. Where did the money go to? Who makes the money? So I filled my tank up with gas on Sunday around, I don't know what time, but at that time it was $2.17, right? And then the little thing happened in Saudi Arabia, allegedly. And yesterday I went by that same gas station and gas was at $2.55. It went up almost 40 cents in less than 24 hours. Now, the gas that was in that, underground tank, because when I was filling up, the big truck was there filling that tank up, was still there. It's not like in that 24 hours, the gas from Saudi Arabia got to that gas tank and it was now more expensive because of that attack. No. So who's making the money? The oil companies are. Very similar to the oil embargo. OPEC. OPEC was an entity that was started in the 50s by BP to represent, international, the Anglo-American oil interest in these foreign countries by giving them a sense that it was theirs, but it wasn't. So, Iran, up until the Shah was deposed and the Ayatollah came in, it was still called BP. And what was quite interesting, the Ayatollah stayed in Paris for 20 years once the Shah was put in, and he was taken care of by the CIA, by Wild Bill Donovan, because they wanted to have their guy. So you like the hat?
Love the hat.
Love the hat? It's my new cowboy hat.
It works.
And so, the Shah of Iran worked for the CIA. He was put there, and then the guy who took his place was the Ayatollah. He was, I have a photo of the Ayatollah being helped. He flew from Paris to Tehran on an Air Force C-130, and he was helped down the ramp by General Secord and good old Ollie North. I have a photo of that. That came out of Life magazine. So, what's it going to cost? So, this little thing that just happened in Saudi Arabia, first allegedly one of our drones gets whacked out of the sky and we're about to bomb the heck out of him, and then Donnie pulls back. So it's just a machine. This is going to kill a lot of people. I didn't want to do it, but now after this, And where I get this kind of feeling is, I was starting to tell you a story yesterday about how my dad used to take us on vacation, twice a year. And my dad was great on vacation. He was like over the horizon. As long as he had something to eat, it was all good. So the real question is where we went. And so we would go all over the place. Most of the time we would go upstate New York if it was summertime, and Karoga and they would drop me off there. I would spend a few weeks up there with my mom's great aunt who loved me because I looked just like her twin brother who died in World War One, or the Spanish-American War, or some imperial war of that nature. And every war that has ever occurred, and my aunt told me this, she had some really great insights. And she said, every war is about money. And that's where she goes, what's it going to cost? And when that happened, and her family was quite wealthy, but she was the last of that dinosaur wealth. So her business plan, she was the prettiest girl in 3 counties, so she married the oldest, richest guy, and then fed him, cream, butter, and steak until he keeled over dead. And then, but she made sure that everything was legally in her name. And then, she married another richest, oldest guy. She did that 4 or 5 times until she owned 3 counties. She owned all the banks, she owned all the businesses, and she was like Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life, right? So I would spend summers, this is when I was really little, so we'd go up there. But so other times we would go other places, to Maryland Shore or Florida, and we would drive. We didn't often fly. There were a lot of us. Anyway, so and my dad would take me on Air Force aircraft because I could fit like in a duffel bag. I mean, he was a colonel; he could take me. But I remember one time we were on the Jersey Turnpike, 95. It was kind of new. Ooh, it's exciting. Highways, interstate, and we were going right by all these refineries, right? And I remember watching the news a few nights earlier, and they said that refinery had blown up, right? And they had these pictures of all this fire. And it was at night, the pictures that they showed on TV of this, and the gas prices were going to go up because of this, because this was one of the major refineries on the East Coast. Anyway, so we're driving by it about 3 or 4 days after I saw this on the news, and I'm all of about 7. And but I'm still thinking, oh, look at that, and this refinery as it goes by. On the New Jersey, it just goes on and on and on. And I'm looking for, didn't this blow up? And there were, in the background, all of these things there were gigantic flames. And I said to my father, so is this the place, what are those flames of? Is that the last refuge of the fire? And he goes, what fire? And I said, this place was, blew up a couple of days ago. And he goes, man. He goes, no, they just burn that stuff off. That's excess. In the process. And that's when I said, And as we went along, gasoline got more and more expensive until we hit this line getting towards Georgia, and gasoline price dropped, and this is when gasoline was like 8 cents a gallon, and they gave you a plate. Well, 9 minutes and 9 seconds. So what do you think of the hat? You like the hat? So everyone, it's almost Halloween, and I'm heading to the Dollar General store. And I'm going to see what they got for Halloween. And then I'm going to go look at Walmart's and see what they got for Halloween. And then you go a couple of days after Halloween and you buy that $3 costume for 59 cents. Anyway, and that's what it's called living on a budget. So yesterday's chat was quite interesting. There's only one of you there, and it's been 10 minutes. Is it 12 yet? Yeah, it's 12:30. So, uh, I just wanted to talk about it's going to cost you. And again, 1st of October is coming up soon. And we have so many fun things to look forward to. We look forward to, um, war, and that's all around us, that has been going on for the last 1,000 years. Uh, we have Brexit. That should be fun. Um, Especially if they do a hard Brexit. And, the forest burning in Brazil, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Saturday, I'm going to this with a friend of mine. I have a friend who's running for legislator in Virginia. We're going to go to Universal Peace Day and see how that is. And it's supposed to be an environmental outreach, right? Because they're building this big pipeline through the Appalachian Mountains, and they're really taking it apart, just messing things up in a big way. So that's what it is. What else can I say? Come on, say something so I can respond. I'm kind of tired. I have these little sonic devices that keep the mice away from me. And the other thing they have are these super duper teeny weeny bright lights. And, they're outside, and they're really good because they keep things, everything, the raccoons, everybody stays away a good, 50, 60 feet. Anyway, so the wind kind of pulled on the extension cord, which kind of made this little device point right at me. And even though that bright light wasn't hitting me in the face, because it was my little hammock, but it was shining up on the tarp over my head. And even though that light wasn't, here, it was hitting over there, and the spill was coming over here. So I could turn my head and put my sleeping bag over my head, and I could fall asleep. But every time I moved around and that light would hit me, it would enter into my consciousness. So that little device is one of those, oh, look at that. What's it doing? And the thing is, we're surrounded by stuff like that. Now, I'm kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, and I have no radio, no internet, no telephone, no cell phone, there's nothing out there. The electric waves are, I don't really get any radio. I have to wait till after night to pick up the skip on the AM. And I get 2 FM channels, actually 3. One is the public radio from some college, and another one is, iHeart thingamajig. And the third is some crazy, rabid minister who just keeps talking and talking and talking. And that's the strongest one. He's like over in some holler with the antenna, and I'm like getting it straight on. And he is like, oh, pretty interesting stuff. He's like making it up as he goes along, kind of like me. But he's a Baptist griot. And instead of him saying, don't believe anything I say, he said, believe everything I said. The end of the times is coming. Well, he's right, because we don't live in a linear world. We live in this thing where it was all Alpha and the Omega. We're just experiencing in a linear world. So, anyway, I got up, turned the light away from me, stuck the little earplugs in my head, and listened to the skip from the AM. And so I'm a little creaky. So, because I sleep well, but I don't, if I'm not being disrupted by some electronic device, I sleep like a log. But when I keep the little earbud in, listening to the skip, I go into real dream time. So I had a lot of wild dreams. And one of them, it kept coming back, to go to DPL. If you look at my business card, what's DPL? Deep Psychic Loving. Now, many different, folk have realized that you have to, that's what psychotherapy is, deep psychic loving. But every time money is involved, it gets a little carried away. Oh, Robinson. Voices in the Woods. Yep. So, and again, my composition books. Look at this one. This is like back from the 70s. I have boxes and boxes of these things, so I got a lot of time on my hands, and I've been going through all this stuff. And so I looked at this one, when I had a practice in New York as a, psychic healer. I read this guy. Where is he? This guy, Leo F. Buscaglia, and Love Each Other. I mean, he's got some really great books. And so he, back in his, when did this one come out? This one came out in when did it come out? Doesn't say. It says everything else, but when it was published, I can't believe it. It says who published it and where, and it's Library of Congress number, but not the date. I can't believe that. Anyway. Oh, no, there it is. 1984, he wrote this one. The Challenge of Human Relationships, right? So anyway, so a lot of people say you should write your dreams down. You should write things down because, why did we take notes in school? Not to remember. It was to understand, because when you hear something and you write it down and you read it and you go, wow, that's why I did that. That's why this happened. That's blah, blah, blah. So DPL was a process I developed that people journal, but that's just like, kvetching. I write novels, that's like releasing memories, right? DPL is when you think of a word, and I'm always saying this, words lead to thoughts, thoughts lead to words lead to actions lead to deeds lead to outcomes. So if you start out with good thoughts, you don't let, oh, I hate this, if you go, I love this, look how beautiful this is. Oh, the sound of the crickets is so nice. Oh, that warm weather. Oh, that cool breeze. You have good thoughts like that. You appreciate, right? You don't complain, and the world isn't against you, because it really isn't. The only person against us is ourselves. You really can't blame other people. This is how you respond, and that's what Leo talks about. It's like how you respond that counts. You have a really bad day, and then you come home from work, and there's your wife, and she's had a few things, and she says something, and instead of like you letting your crap go, listening to hers and helping her let her crap go, you kind of respond to it, and then you start screaming at each other, right? So the way you let it go is you think of that and you let it go and you replace it with the best thing you can think of. So I was thinking about all this as the earbuds were in my ears because they were going on about Saudi Arabia and how we're about to have nuclear war. And the real nuclear war I'm concerned with is between Pakistan and India. Because those guys have, they got each got 100 nuclear weapons on the ends of missiles ready to go. And they got more in the warehouse. So, they just shot off 10 apiece at each other. That would lift enough radioactive dirt into the upper air, the troposphere, that would cover the world and give us what is known as a nuclear winter, which would mean that in July it would be 30 degrees or 40 degrees, right? And we wouldn't have enough light to have photosynthesis. So we'd have 3 to 5 years of that, and about 90% of the human race would starve to death, So, that is We got a lot of issues. The only way we can stop it is with positive thought. So that's where this DPL comes in. So this morning I got my little, laptop, and I said, start new, blank piece of page on there, and things to, what's the cost of these things in my mind? And I thought of the things that could be considered negative, and I replace them. And what did I replace them with one word? And that one word was forgiveness. Yep, I'm from that. Yeah. And then I said, okay, so the word today is forgiveness. So the next word I need to find is what motivates forgiveness. The word that came, empathy. So all today I am replacing all the negative thoughts that, in the myriad of days, oh, that guy cut me off, oh, they took my parking lot, oh, instead of all of that, I am thinking forgiveness, empathy. Okay, that guy did a pinhead thing. I forgive that. So, motivation of why that happened. Okay, I forgive that. 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 And that's DPL. So that's today's little, So what's it going to cost you? What it's going to cost you is having a better life, right? And that's why I was wearing my new cowboy hat, my cowboy Al Bob hat, for Halloween, stylish, you know. Anyway, so, well, I'm the doorstep of a lot of craziness coming on. And, you thought Donnie was nuts. That was nuts. I love Donnie because Donnie really represents, if Donnie had put his little phone away the day he took his little oath, today he'd be considered the best president America ever had, right? If you just let that sycophant Mike Pence go on and on about how much he loves Donald Trump, blah, 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 and how much we're doing great for everyone, especially that, good, clean coal. What's really interesting is right now, how they're letting the coal companies make a profit is that they don't have to stick to any of the safety standards. And right now, because there's less and less coal in the ground and they have to cut through rock to get at those seams, the miners for the last 10 years have been breathing not coal dust to get black lime, but they have been breathing silicate, which isn't even on the law. Silicate's like little, diamonds of glass, and it's, almost microscopic, and it's everywhere, and they're breathing it in, so it's just chewing up their lungs. And then the black coal dust gets in those, cuts in the lungs. Ooh. So there is way worse black lung disease in the coal miners, and they're doing nothing, and they're letting the companies go bankrupt and still work under bankruptcy, and they're not held to any of the UAW contracts, and so it's a mess. And they're not talking about that, but I really love the coal miners, not really, because I live right around, West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky. I'm right in that 200 square mile, Appalachian poverty. So, there are a lot of things going to come out. And that's what's great about Donnie, because all this stuff is coming out. I have to do a little, because the media isn't going to talk to you about it. So but it's right there on the surface. You can just look at what's going on. So this presidential election. Now, if they pick Joe Biden to run, then Donald Trump is a shoo-in to win. Anybody else is going to give Donnie a run for his money. Now, the person who could just take his pens out would be Tulsi Gabbard, but she would show, because she's the only one going on about it. And there's another, forget Warren, forget the, you know, district attorney girl from California, forget any of those, forget Bernie. There's there's another one there that's I like her. I don't know if she's a senator or congressman, but she's she's in that top 10. Not she's in that 10, but Tazi Gabbard, she had way more everything than that Buttigieg guy, and uh, anti-Bob. Uh, I don't know. I don't care. Because I'm just here to serve love's co-creation, and you guys, my cadre. You know, uh, it's 26 minutes, and seriously, there's Robinson, and Mutate. They all got the same orange head. Are they all the same? Anyway. So the next 15 months are going to be pretty wild and crazy. And I know Love's co-creation will call upon me to do whatever it wants me to do, and I'll do it, because that's what I do, and because it always takes care of me, But, normally I sleep on the ground in a tent, which is, but last night the stars were so nice that I was on my hammock, and I fell asleep. I woke up with that light, not on me, but making me aware of it. So, and I was too tired to get out of my hammock and crawl in my tent, so I stayed. I just got up, threw my sleeping bag over me, and went back to sleep. So I'm a little more achy than because my bed in the tent is quite nice. It's a nice air mattress. So it's quite nice. It's just it moves around with me. It's quite supportive, and I like it. And I have a foam, hard foam, and then soft foam, about that thick, and then quilted foam, and then the air mattress, like the Princess and the Pea. So in my tent, it's quite comfy, in my box. But like I said, I was watching the stars, and it's really beautiful there because there is no light. And I got my little magic clicker. I can turn the lights on and off. And the only one light I couldn't turn off by my magic clicker was that one little mouse light. So, and like I said, it wasn't right on me. It was just once you turn all the other lights off, light was the main light, and which was okay because when I got out, it's lighting up my way so I could step on anything. I mean, it all works out, and that's what it's all about. If you let your life be led by good thoughts, no matter what happens, it always happens for the best of reasons. Right? It cost me a lot of money, it just cost me a little money, but it fixed a whole bunch of things that I'd be walking. So that little bit of inconvenience of that day took care of a whole bunch of things I didn't even know, and it was taken care of for me. I was like, you can't complain. There's no sense to complain, and there is no one out to get. Like I said, the worst person, your worst enemy is ourselves. That's our worst enemy, ourselves. And what's his name said, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. This is true. Really. So anyway. Everyone of the cadre is the cadre, but they all have different points of view. So we shouldn't ever, again, what are the two words for today: forgiveness and empathy. To understand forgiveness, we have to be empathetic. So, and I think I'm gonna, those are probably the two most foundational blocks of having a good life. So I'll be working on forgiveness and empathy for at least a week, if not two. So, uh, oh, 30 minutes and 30 seconds. So, the five of you there, anybody got something you want to talk about? I mean, it's a beautiful day. It's supposed to be beautiful for the next foreseeable future. It's been, I've been away from the school now 62 days. I've been out in the deep green. And it's been really, 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 I live in a, rainforest, give or take. And so even when it doesn't rain, it kind of rains because what happens is, the Smokies, Westside Smokies condensation. It's not somebody having a fire. And so, the sun hits the tree canopy. It takes all the moisture off the tops of the leaves, puts it right there just above the canopy. Then the sun goes down, the cold air comes here, and it pushes it down like a sieve into the ground. So when I wake up in the morning the sun doesn't hit me until about 7:30. It has to come over the mountain, but the sky starts to lighten up around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And so that's when I wake up. But I don't get out of bed. I get out of bed 8 a.m. By then the sun is crackling through the trees. It's still cool out. So that's when I pop out and put my feet on the ground and meditate for a good 15, 20 minutes. I meditate where I'm asleep for about 10, 15 minutes so I can get up. And then, I got a chair to get me up, and I sit in the chair and put my shoes on and meditate there. And then I walk, And then I do my, step and sweep. And I make it down the hill and to the facilities, and then I walk over there to where my little Bunsen burner is, and I make myself some tea and maybe fry up an egg, and I start my day. And by that time, it's about 9-ish, and then from 9 till 11:30, it's good to work, to clear things, move things, go through things. Then after 11:30, it starts to get toasty. From 11:30 to 3 o'clock, the sun is right up there, and so that's when I go underneath the canopy and underneath my tarps and sit in my hammock and read, right? And then by 4 o'clock, the sun has kind of gone over there where I have my writing desk, and the sun, it's really perfect because it's not shining on me, but it for about 2 hours, there's a slice of light that comes through and hits my photocell. That's my photocell for my laptop. And the keys. So I really lace those keys up good so I can see them. And I write for about an hour or two. Usually that's my novel time. And I will, and how I write is I'll go to the beginning of the last, because if you need to go to xrated.blog.com, where you can see all the novels I put up there in my writings. And you can see that there's this successive stories that the characters, I'm like, the guy who wrote David Copperfield and The Christmas Carol and Tale of Two Cities. Especially his, Tale of Two Cities, Christmas Carols was Dickens' 2 books that he wrote with an arc that he had in mind. All the other books, Tale of Two, David Copperfield and Great Expectations, they were all written to be serialized in newspapers, so they go on forever and ever and have a zillion characters. And that's kind of, my novels are like that. Lots of different stories, all, in the same kind of punch bowl. They're all kind of connected. So that's what I've been doing. And in the mornings, I go through my stuff. I got a ton of stuff because when I left the school, I just, threw things in the car and drove them out of there and dumped them on the ground. I had I have pallets, and I put all the boxes of things into garbage bags and tie them up, and then put um, a tarp over them. Right. So most of the time, um, things are high and dry. Like this book came from a box of that, and not a problem. Whereas this book came from another box that got wet. But so it's readable. You kind of sometimes have to peel the pages apart, but this is a pretty good book. Anyway, so I've been going through all my boxes of books and papers and composition books, and it's going through everything because I just kind of threw stuff, got out of there. So anyway, that's where I'm at now. So I want you guys to go buy yourself a composition book if you haven't already, and start writing in it. Right, write stories, blog or do a journal, which is just about what you did or how you felt about this or that. But when you do an internal writing, you know, DPL, deep psychic loving writing, meaning where you go in there and go in here and feel what this is and kind of pull those feelings out and you write about them. And it's not a blaming writing, it's not a whining, so that's the story. Let's see. Well, I'm not worrying about it till it comes. Pretty much what I always do. Something happens. Last year this is 2019. So the winter of 1819, I was around lots of different places. I had a warm place. The winter, though, of 2017-18, I was like evicted summarily and had nothing prepared. So I, had an adventure. I went down and I met this guy I knew who just got a gig at being a pastor at a church, and he had no idea. They wanted him to do ministering, to the poor. I wasn't like in his wheelbox, so he got me to be his action coordinator. He couldn't pay me anything, but I could, on the down low, sleep in the church, and so I did. And he, in my, running the, I really was an action coordinator. I mean, we started a thing called the No Fear Cafe for people to have, because it's right in the middle of town. So the mayor and everyone in the, city bureaucracy, on the state bureau, a itinerant scholar, who's, has nobody likes people who have a lot of experience. There isn't a place for elders. You're supposed to be, considerate and die, and they're doing that here in the deep green. All of the grandmas and grandpas are in their 50s. These people don't make it to 57. This is grandma that just died. But you look like 4 years older than me. He was 53. Anyway, so that winter, I said the church, and then through that, I helped a lot of other people. So we kinds of outreach. So I was in those other facilities helping with the outreach, and they need somebody to be the grown up in the house for a couple of nights. I would stay there, and then I ended up out in the middle of the Cherokee National Forest, or was the Washington, and I ran into a bunch of kids who were like freezing to death. And they were bourgeois. They came from Georgia. They had just graduated college. They couldn't get a job. So they were going to take, one last fling. And so they decided to hike up the AT from Georgia to Maine. But, in January, they were in West Virginia, where I was. And so I showed them how to survive. So we made a camp, and then we found ourselves a log cabin and fixed it up and stayed warm. And and they had nothing. And then I found, I showed them that what I had to do was take wood off the floor. It hasn't started snowing, so let's fill this cabin with as much wood off the floor of the, because they wanted to go to Lowe's and buy firewood, like in little packs. I said, no, kids, we're in the middle of the forest. We get the wood from these, it's right on the ground. Just drag it into the cabin and we'll break it up. So we did. And as our sphere of looking for wood got bigger, I couldn't do it. I would say, oh, look, here's a bunch of wood, great, right. And I'd sit and meditate and, oh, look at this. I was being Grandpa Smurf. But I noticed there was a crew of people off, just out of sight. I got a sense of them. And I kind of slowly leaned and moved in their direction, and they didn't move. And I found them, and they were U.S. Army Rangers, about 8 of them, 6 guys, 2 girls. And they had been in Afghanistan and Iraq and other parts of North Africa. And they had been deployed 8 times, and all of them had the worst case of PTSD I ever seen, and they had broken in country. Some new lieutenants said, okay, we're going to go march over here, and that's like where the Taliban was. I'm sorry, sir, we shouldn't do that because we'll die. I'm no lieutenant, I know what I'm doing. And he would, said, no, sir, we're not doing that. And then, you're disobeying my direct order. And he said, yes, sir, I am. And all of these guys, they had silver stars, bronze stars, box full of Purple Hearts. And yet, because of that incident, they were summarily, dishonorably discharged. So they couldn't get anything from the VA or any of their, but, they're heroes, right? So there are 8 of them. So they didn't fit in when they went back home, and they, kind of coalesced again and decided to put on their Army uniforms, take off their patches, and go live in the woods because they knew how to survive there. So I said, why don't you come on into the, but you're in there. I said, no. These kids need you. I'm not going to be here. I'm about to move on. I knew I was, but they need you. You have all the survival skills. They got money. They got access, So I put them both together, right? And then a couple of days later, this girl's, smartphone rang, and it was her aunt who was about 50 miles away, and said, oh, your mother told me that you live in the woods. Why don't you come over? I got a car for you in 1,000. So, I was the only one with a car, so I drove over there, and that's when I met the next person, who we were in a supermarket, and, we went to the supermarket, and first we went to the aunt, got the car, got the $1,000. She gave me 200, which was nice. She don't tell anybody, no, so, and then we went to the supermarket. I said, just buy, I'll show you how to buy things in the supermarket, manager specials, everything that's about to be thrown out. They'll sell it. It used to cost $4, and now it's 35 cents, let your money go a long way. So we were doing that. And when we were at, checking out, there was this woman who was like rubbing my arm, and I looked at her, yes, what do you want? And she looked like the Michelin Man upside down. And she goes, are you a handyman? And I didn't know what that meant, whether it was like some weirdness. I go, well, what are you talking about, man? She said, well, I live in a big house, and it's kind of stopped working, and no one will come fix anything. Are you a handyman? And I said, yeah, I'm a pretty handy guy, and I got my tools in the car. And she goes, well, and she showed me these pictures on her camera. It was like, 7 bedrooms, each having their own, 2 had suites with jacuzzi. I mean, it was like plush. So I said, sure. So I told, and I knew I wasn't going to stick with these kids forever. I said, okay, I'm going to go with this lady. And I went with her, and we went deeper into West Virginia. And it was like straight, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movies Arsenic and Old Slice. It was like this, right? And there was a guy just like Teddy Roosevelt there. Anyway, so, that was right. I mean, they had a heating system that didn't work. It was pretty cold in there. They had a fireplace. They tried to start a fire, and it like filled the place with smoke. They didn't realize you had to open up the damper. So, first I looked in the fireplace from my place. I thought I had a damper. Open that up, got something that would burn hot and, forced hot air up the chimney, built a fire because they had a big pile of wood. She had got a truckload of wood. I built a nice fire there. It got it going. It got that room, the living room, dining room, kitchen, open scenario, got that warm. When I walked in there, it was like 40 something degrees. It was 9 degrees. And that's how insulated this house. It was like 9 degrees below zero outside. It was about 40 inside the house. I mean, that was pretty amazing. So I got that fireplace going, and I went down to the basement, and the basement, gigantic basement, beautiful basement, had an apartment unto itself and a big, gigantic garage. And she had just unbelievable amount of crap in that garage, all from Amazon. And half of it, she hadn't even opened up the boxes. It was like, and she had 2 little houses on a thing that were like rentable, but they were nice. There was nothing in them. And she had gotten all these shelves. She wanted one where she was going to assemble her weaving thing, and the other thing, her sewing thing. And anyway, so I kind of basically cleared those things out, put those shelves up, ran electricity into them because they didn't have electricity in them. Put baseboard heating in each so it would be warm because they were both well insulated and sheetrocked and double thingamajig windows. And then I took everything out of those boxes and put them in those 2 little houses. Stuff that was for weaving, the stuff that was for sewing. And then I cleaned her whole garage out, and then I cleaned her whole basement out. And I put shelves everywhere. And the first thing I did was they had an amazing heating system that had it had 2 different. It had hot water radiators, had baseboard radiators, and it also had forced air, that AC. But the AC had a heat pump in the ground, right? And heat pumps work the best in extremes. If it's really cold or really hot. So, and sometimes it's too cold, then you need a back. Anyway, long story short was that they had been there 2 years and didn't know that they had to change the air filter, and the filter was so full of gunk. But I just kind of took it off and turned it on and played with the regulators a little bit and got the heat thing going, right? And so it had oil, and it had the heat pump, and it had a wood component where you burnt wood and it heated the water. So there wasn't that much oil in the thing, so I didn't want the gunk from the bottle of the tank to get in the system. So I started firing the wood thing, and it got the radiators and the whole thing toasted up. So the house was now in 65, right? So within 2 or 3 hours, I got the house warm, right? In about 1 day, I cleaned out those 2 little houses and cleaned out the garage and the basement. And then just started fixing and making things work around that place. And she was like so ecstatic. And then she just started telling me her whole life story. And I was, being the shrinky guy I was, and gave her a few little points of this and that. And I said, let me show you something. So she had this, lazy boy that she spent her whole life in. It's like, why don't you look like the Michelin Man upside down? And I massaged her feet. I did, the kind of acupressure that I do on her feet. And it was like, changed her life. She was like, again, I became, oh, he's going to save me. Oh, he's going to marry me. Oh, I love this man. And all I did was fix her boiler and clean her house and start cooking for her. And she was a pretty good baker, so she started baking. And her mother came out of her show and really liked, and her mother was actually she wasn't demented like my mom's demented. No, she just didn't want to talk to her daughter, who was like in her, And what's really interesting, it looked more like sisters because the mother was pushing 90 and in pretty good shape. And the daughter was, pushing 58. And they both looked the same age. So anyway, so that's how I spent the winter of 2017, and and John kept, oh, I want you back going, but I was in a place where my phone just didn't work for 3 months. From he threw me out the day after Christmas of 2016, and I came back in May of 2017, and was just there for a week or two before. Oh, make it. So, so I went to the Deep Green and spent the summer there in 2017. And in 2018 was a replica of that. Spent a few weeks here and there, and then had adventures and spent that summer at the Deep Green. So this was a replay of that. But this one is getting closer to. But I have friends. I have some friends in Europe who want to come and check out America, especially Florida, and they want to go to Puerto Rico. And I have other friends who want me to go with them to different parts of the world, right? And do my looking at things at that place. I said, well, you're going to have to give me the paperwork. So I got plenty of potential. And the universe, wherever I'm supposed to go, that's where I'll be. Hey, Twitchy. Good morning, sweetie. Fish. Miss Robinson. Is it Mrs. Robinson? Oh. So it always works out. When you don't worry about things, when you're always there to serve love's creation, it's taken care of. When you don't get upset by whatever goes down, and you learn, you set yourself out to learn, to see what it's about. That's what this life's about, is to learn, to educate our soul. It's not to be popular. It's not to be famous. It's not to be, rich, powerful. Really want to be those things? It's too much effort. Anyway, well, Andrew, good to see you. Live in the heart. Yep, here I am. Twitchy, what's shaking in your land? You're a female. One of my favorite types of human, female. Guys can be okay too. They got their good points. Yeah, Sunray, of course. Yep. Just in school and work. What do you like of Sunray? Sun Ra. Twitchy, have you ever looked up at Zelda something Thurston? She was one of the luminaries of the Harlem Renaissance. She was an amazing painter, an amazing writer, and she hung out at Columbia studying anthropology. I always forget this guy's name, but he started there's I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. He started that. I mean, he revisited it. The Greeks started it. Polonius, Pythagoras, and what's his name? The guy before Plato started that, right? And so Zira Thorsten, she has a middle name, studied that. Zelda. Yeah. Uh, uh, anyway, Jamie, what are you up to, kid? Uh, 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 well, I won't sleep tonight, that's for sure. Part of it was to show that I wasn't going to be scared off by any shadow creature in the forest because I experienced one of them the other night. And it's pretty amazing. I have one of this little storage box, and I don't know how I got from being startled by the shadow creature to being in the box with the door locked. I don't even remember running the 100 yards and getting in the box and locking it. Okay, Sun Ra, yeah. Yep, anyone not familiar with Ra, you should check him out. So, building house for a young family, exceptional. Staircases are fun, but they're one of these things you got to start out just. It's one of those things. Measure twice, cut once. I once built a staircase, and it was designed to lean up against a ridge panel of the floor above it. And when I finished building it and went to put it up there, it was that short from resting up against that. So the staircase did this. I had to build the whole floor out. It was measure twice, cut once. Well, we all have bumps and bruises and aches and pains, but meditation and breath really what keeps me walking around. That's my doctors. I'm going to have my fall return of going to see my medical staff. And oh boy, all the things that are wrong with me are still wrong, but they're in great shape. My endocrinologist, his joke is I'm the healthiest dead guy he knows. Anyway, and that's all you got to do is good thoughts, good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes. Yeah, yeah. Being a non-reg zone, they're not used to people going, so honey, what's wrong? Why are you so upset? Have you meditated yet? Let's breathe. Let's pray. They're out the door. So, or they change. There's a troll. Her name is Diana Lee or something. I just call her D. And she's a very nice person, but she started out very trollish, and she must have had a bad day. But instead of reacting to her in a, she came back saying, I was in a bad mood, and now I'm going to tell you my real name, and I'm going to start over again. Not bad. The other ones who didn't come back, and they come back a little bit, but they can't stand. No, it's okay. Here, have a brownie. It's like. And again, it comes from people who want to blame somebody else. Meaning, I try to see what's ever kind of going in my life that isn't. It's like my body. Oh, well, my back aches. Well, why does it ache? Because I slept in my hammock this night. And I didn't meditate enough, and I didn't sleep and step enough. But I will go back to the deep green, and that's what I'll do for about a half an hour, in about 2 hours. I'm thinking of I wanted to kick around more here because there's a restaurant that has free oysters after 5 o'clock if you buy dinner. So, and they have really good oysters. I went last Tuesday. So for $7, I can eat, have dinner, a cocktail, and have all the oysters I want. But I may head back earlier while it's still sunny and warm and step and sweep. And the other thing, yesterday I got into a big jag of cleaning. That's another reason I bent over a lot, picking things up. That's another reason why my back was kind of sore. So, huh? Mossad honey trap, yeah. No, good luck with that. Back way back when I lived in Waynesburg, Brooklyn, my landlord was a Hebrew rabbi, and he was one of the head ones. And he had a rabbinic school that were, more the esoteric teachings of the Kabbalah. That's what I was interested in. And for the first couple of years, he would come visit me when he come get my rent. And it was like a tradition. He would, normally I would give it to the super, but no, he liked getting it. So he'd come and he would bring little, something that he had made. And we would play Go. He loved Go. I taught him how to play. He was a chess player, and then I taught him how to play Go. And he was like, wow, I love this game. And we would talk theology. We would talk the Torah. And he was speaking me Hebrew, and I knew Greek. And they said we were looking at. Oh, he would bring old documents, and I would read them from the Greek. And so, when I say read, I could kind of parse things. I can't be literal because nothing from that stuff is literal. So anyway, so he basically said, you need to be a rabbi. I said, Rabbi, come on, I'm Roman Catholic. My godfather's a cardinal. I'm Irish and German and Italian, and really. And he goes, well, no one's perfect. And the Hasids, we are like the Baptist of the Jews. We'll take anybody. Now, he didn't say Jews. He never used the word Jews. He said, we are the Baptist of the Hebrew nation. And he told me that the Jews were jewelers, right? Not, that's where that term came from. That's what the guys from, the Vatican C would call them. Because, they were just a Khazarian nation coming west or east or whatever that Europe direction was. So they couldn't own property, they couldn't hold office, they couldn't marry into families. What they could do is lend their bling to kings to fight wars. And that's where Mr. Rothschild got his start. So, that's a Khazarian nation who became the Anunnaki, who became the Zionists. So anyway, I was, it was his, it was my rabbi's Lubavitcher. If he said I can go to school there, I went, and I had the white beard. Well, actually, it was dark then. I went, and I was, and all I studied really was the esoteric stuff. These guys were studying to be rabbis, but I was studying, and they didn't, and, whenever we studied that, my rabbi would have me teach that stuff, And so, anyway, long story short, I really got into that community, and everyone's trying to marry me off, right? And So there's a girl who shows up from Israel whose father is a cantor of the government there, and she's going to be the first female cantor. And my rabbi wants me to hook up with her and marry her, so he'll have political. And so he like hooks us up together and gives us space and time to get the sparks going. Well, we don't have those kind of sparks, but we must have been brother and sister and another, because we had the most familiar trust and love, and just had the greatest old time of reading books and play. She could play the clarinet like you couldn't believe, and the saxophone too. And she also played the cello. And I mean, she was an amazing. So I took her to Juilliard to visit my musician friends there, and we would go a good deal and listen to music at Carnegie Hall, and one of my friends said, why don't you take her uptown to the clubs? And the clubs up there were, black clubs, and they were, what were they called? It was at that time. So, after Stonewall happened, the gay folk of the West Village kind of said, screw it, we're going to be ourselves, right? So, the West Village became their neck of the woods, but it was all white. So that same scene got mirrored uptown, right? And so that was black. And actually, those clubs were way more fun, and because they were like your home, right? And there's a TV show, I haven't seen it, but I hear about it, that talks about that time, right? And it starts with, and that was when Madonna did her Vogue thing. She was into that scene. She had gone up there and checked it out in the West Village, and that's her whole, her stage show was like a copy of what was going on in Harlem. So I take this Jewish, genius musician who's going to be, the government of Israel's first female cantor. I take her up there, and so we go to one of those things, and that's like the first part of the crawl. So we go to that, and kind of leave there we get there maybe 9:00 and leave around 11. And then we go over to the clubs that are just starting to open, that are kind of down low. And those are jazz clubs, right? And we go to one, and it's kind of almost vaudeville. There's guys telling jokes and music and singers and guys telling, we watch a little bit of that. And then we go on to the more serious, really down low jazz clubs. And we go in there, and, we're the only white people in there. Now, I've been in there. I know these guys, the Green family, who I used to fix all their properties for up there in Harlem, they were the family. So I was connected. So everybody knew me. I fixed it, back in the day, I'd fixed everyone's everything. Half those clubs I wired, I would take stuff from the fancy clubs downtown and put them in theirs. Anyway, so I could just walk in. I didn't have to wait on hey, yeah, how you doing? And I had this really attractive, very exotic looking woman who, and, from the very orthodox Jewish thing that, women dress very similar to what Islam, Muslim women. I mean, not the total burqa, but they cover themselves up. So we walk in there, and they're thinking that, Al's got, his Muslim girlfriend. And so go in there, and we got a nice seat, not like way in the back, but a nice seat. They give me a nice seat. Bring, you want something to drink? I said, oh, bring tea, and that's like the good tea, so, they bring a nice little urn, because the guy who's running this place is kind of, from Africa. So he brings the good tea. He said, you want a hookah? I said, no, I'm not going to smoke. But everybody else sure was. So couldn't help but get a little contact something from that room. And so we're drinking tea and we're listening to jazz, and this combo comes on, and the sax guy comes on that I know. And he is like the best. And he's got a tenor and an alto sax and a clarinet. And they play their set, and she is just smitten. right? And she takes off she kind of, you know, lets herself be seen a little better. And the black guy, my buddy up there who's playing the sax, is kind of going, And she's making eyes at him, and he's making eyes at her. And he's getting the vibe that, no, this ain't Al's girl. This is my soon to be girl. So, you know, I'm picking up on this. So their set's over. And there's, that's when people get food or, it's like clink, clink, clink time, for about half an hour, 15 minutes before the next set. So he comes over and he says, can I join you out? I said, sure. And I introduce him and that's it. It's like I wasn't there anymore. They're like talking. She's a real musician. He goes, they're going on about clarinet and it's his, yes, he plays the sax. He says, well, I play the sax, but clarinet's my thing. I also play the oboe. He says, I play the piano. And they are like totally gaga over each other, just their musicalness, right? And he went to Juilliard. That's how I knew him. And he was super schooled, And so, we stay the whole set, right? And then when they pack up, he leaves his stuff and we walk over across the bridge of the Harlem River onto where the FDR starts, and that's kind of near city, Tammany Hall, and where the mayor lives, and we walk all along the FDR Drive down to 34th Street, right? Because he lives down there, and they're just I'm just being their chaperone. I'm not saying much. They're like 3 or 4, and they're holding hands, and they're like, So anyway, we get to where he is, and he goes, I'm going to call my brother, because he's got he's up and around right now. So he goes we go in the house. He calls his brother. The guy shows up, and he takes us straight back to the rabbi's house. And from that, my friend's house, I called the rabbi. He goes, where you been? I said, don't worry. Hey, you put her in my charge. I took care of it. Everything's fine. She just loved. I took her to hear music. She's like, and so we just kept listening to more and more music. He goes, oh, good. I'm glad you called. Because it was still, it was like maybe 3 a.m. or something. Anyway, so, we show up around 5, drop them up, right? And my buddy's brother goes, boy, my brother really likes this girl, and he goes, she has sit. I said, oh, if she ever has sit. He goes, well, how's that going to work? I said, the heart knows what it likes. He kind of shakes his head. And so, and this is 1977, 76, something like that. It was after, the 200th birthday. So anyway, the next day, she wants to go hear more music. I said, no. Let's give it a few days, So we do, and we go see it again. And now they are really smitten. So I say, guys, you got to watch out for this. You got to, this is going to, I see what's going on here. Long and the short of it, within a few weeks, she runs off with him. Now that was like, because she's like a rock star in Israel, and she takes off with a swatza, so I get blamed. And my rabbi goes, you got to get out of New York. I said, what? So they're very pissed off at you. What did I do? He said, well, you brought her to that guy, and they can't find her, and they go underground, and they said the only other person they put a lot of heat on me, and I'm just telling you better get out of town. And I said, okay. So I did for a whole year, and that's, went over to Ireland and, got on Freddie Laker's Airbus now for $75 and spent about a year over there with the old crone. I knew she'd protect me and Archie. And when I came back, it was like, same list that ever was. So I called up my rabbi. I didn't go back to the neighborhood. And I said, so how is it? He goes, well, it's cooled down, but you still should watch your back. So I went and stayed with some friends in the West Village. And John Cale, my buddy. So, because I had a girlfriend whose sister was John's wife, right? And John and I got along like two peas in a pod. And because I was not like, oh, you gotta go. No, he liked airplanes. He liked, all the things I liked, esotericness, engineering. He loved Tesla. He loved my Tesla library. Anyway, and so I could sleep on his couch, and so I did. And we had nothing to do. And so he wasn't on tour or doing anything. So we would go down, and there was a place called the Paris Commune that a friend of mine owned. A great little, it was like a Paris coffee shop. Great coffee, great croissants, he was a great baker, great chef, great cook. It was like going to Paris, and he had a backyard, a little garden that you could sit and the sun would hit most of the time and you could have coffee. So we would have breakfast, a nice little omelet, little croissants, coffee, and talk about this. And there was a big, one of my favorite newsstands. They don't have them anymore. They just didn't have newspapers from New York. I have them from everywhere. And journals, right? So that was one of the reasons he lived there, that newsstand. And and then if you go to the newsstand in the movie Men in Black, the newsstands that they show there are that newsstand. And and the guy who in the first Men in Black, he was Beck, Julian Beck, just before he died of cancer. Anyway, so was somebody who looked like Julian just before he died of cancer. Anyway, so we go to that, and then between our breakfast and our lunch, or second breakfast, we would walk across 10th Street over to the east side and go to where Weiser's bookstore was, the old one, because they had the newer one. They had the print shop, they had this shop. And we'd go in there, and they too, it was, antediluvian bookstore. And we'd go pick up 3 or 4 books from the shelves, and we could go sit in the reading room, again, where they had tea and nice little biscuits. If you were part of the crew that could go into the back room. So we did. So we're there, and we're doing that, right? So so that our week turns into that, right? We kind of have breakfast at the French Commune. I can either lead into lunch at the French Commune, or we walk across 10th Street to Weiser's, and then we would go on. Oh, there's an Irish pub, like on 10th Street or 9th Street, or kind of over near. It's right on one of those little streets, between 2nd Avenue and Broadway. Anyway, so that would be our day, because he had nothing to do, and his wife loved it. And sometimes we would take one of the little kids who would want to stroll with us, and so we did. So anyway, by about 3rd, 4th, 5th day, we're at another, maybe Valsaka's, or it was either a Greek restaurant or a Ukrainian dairy. I'm not quite sure. And there are all these, Lori said, have all these great little European kind of places. So anyway, and again, they have the common room for everybody, and then they'd have the back room, like the VIP lounge. All these places had that. If they knew you, if you were a regular, if you, deserved to be back there and take up space, if you could add to it, and John loved these places, because they treated him special, but they didn't have a clue who he was, And so anyway, so we were at this place, And this was the second day we went there, you know, and because I had the Jag for whatever they were making, whether it was blintzes or whatever. Anyway, so I'm sitting there and again drinking real tea from like an urn. And John goes, "Don't turn around, but there's a guy who's looking at you like he wants to kill you." And he looks like he's an assassin. He's wearing black. He's got a black leather jacket, and everything fits him form fitting. And he's got really almost military shoes. I mean, John was very observant. So I go, "Oh, okay." And so I turn around and I like lean over to this guy and go, "Hey, listen, are you here to kill me?" And he kind of looks, he kind of set backs and goes, "Yes, I am." I said, "So you're from Mossad? Come and join us." And he sits down. I said, "So you've been following us for the last couple of days. How come you haven't knocked me off?" And he goes, "Is that John?" I said, "Yeah, that's John." He goes, "I love that guy. I said, "Well, just come and join us. Sit down, be part of the scene." So he did. He had a great, spent 2 or 3 hours, and the little kids with us, and crawling around, and everything's fine. And John goes, "Hey, we got to go back home." And the guy goes, "Well, you're going to come back here?" I said, "Yeah, we'll come back. We'll have lunch tomorrow. Maybe you'll kill me then." And he goes, "I don't know." So anyway, we do, and he is there, and we talk, and we get his whole. And he has been in Israel his whole life. He first started out as an Air Force, got to be a colonel, then he went into special, then in Mossad, then blah, 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 then became an assassin. And he didn't like doing it. He didn't like doing it from the beginning. He loved flying airplanes. He didn't like bombing innocent people. He didn't like the militarism. And once he got into it, he couldn't get out of it. And he was gay, and he couldn't even be on the down low gay and be in that scene. Where'd he be dead, And so, he was in his 40s, so he wasn't a spring chicken. And they had sent him to New York and to do things in New York. So he could, be more himself. Anyway, so I said, "So why don't you, join the club?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you don't have to go." He said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "Well, I'm staying outside." I said, "Well, that's like, a safe house. Don't you have a place of your own?" "No." "So why don't you stay outside? Can't he, I'm gonna find a place. And so why don't you, why don't we stay with John for a few more days and find I'll put up my feelers and get a place, So that's what's happened. And I find a place right on Times Square, right. Times Square is 7th Avenue and Broadway like this, right on, 48th Street's up there, 42nd Street's kind of in the middle, and 30-something's at the bottom of Times Square. And I guess it was, what street was it? 39th Street or something, it was not Times Square. It wasn't, 42nd Street. It wasn't 30 this street. It wasn't, 70 that street. It was, one of these other streets in between. That was a street. And you went in, and there was an alley. And along the alley, there were little apartment buildings that were left over from God knows where. Again, it looked like, something straight out of Harry Potter. And one of the apartments was up there. It was a little apartment, that was one room, a toilet, a little hallway, a bedroom at the end of the hallway. And the room was like maybe 14 feet by 14 feet. And, there was, the toilet, the bathroom, which had a nice tiled bathroom with a nice 1940s bathtub, a pretty deep one, and had a shower in it. And it was a nice bathroom, actually. Had a window. And then the bedroom was quite nice. It had windows on 2 sides because it was kind of not a backyard, but a space between the next building over there and this one. So there was sunlight coming in there, and it was a fire escape. But the front room actually had a very nice window facing out to the street, and the street wasn't like this. It was kind of like this. So the window kind of looked out and to the expanding street that went out to the street that went out to, so you could just kind of glimmer a little bit of Times Square, and you could also glimmer a little bit of the East Side. And about 7 in the morning, the sun would come shining like floodlight into that room from about 7 in the morning or sometime in the morning for about 40 minutes, and then it would get dark. So it's quite a nice little apartment. And with that hallway, the hallway was not this, it was kind of, relatively wide. So it was because of the plumbing and all, and the kitchen. That's why the hallway was as wide as it was. And so when we had parties, you know, it was actually, you could fit a good bunch of people in there. And we kind of knocked, the window already was kind of big in the bedroom out to the fire escape. And so we kind of, made it so you could just walk onto the fire escape. And the fire escape too was kind of big because the staircases coming from above are kind of wide. So, we put down carpet, some wood and carpet on the fire escape. So we had our little, in a little table out there, we'd have breakfast. Anyway, so I lived there for a while, but that was Yos's apartment. And he became an artist, a painter, a poet. He hung out with all my beat friends. And then they sent somebody after him and me. And that was somebody he knew. And he spotted him one day. They came over and he gave him a big hug and a big kiss. And the guy was like, because that was his boyfriend in Israel. And anyway, so they hooked up. That apartment, they got jobs. He was a really good accountant, so he got a job as an accountant. And Yos actually did pretty well as a poet artist. He got a job teaching, and so their life changed. And anyway, I get a call from my rabbi. He goes, okay, all's forgiven. And I go visit my rabbi, and he says, well, Sasha, the girl, she showed up, and she her husband is pretty famous, and so the government now, they now live in Israel, and because he's so famous, and everyone loves him in France and America, that that's all good, and it's like it shows them the government how liberal they are, right? So and he said, they were scared to send any more Mossad guys after you because they're all turning gay. Anyway, so all was forgiven. So that's the end of that story. So that was almost an hour and a half, and it's almost 2 p.m. And so again, don't believe anything I say. Go check it out for yourself. It's a really nice day. I'm going to go do a little bit of shopping and then go back. It should be cool enough to get back into what I was doing yesterday. It's a really good, between 3:30 and 8 is the perfect time to do work over the Deep Green. The sun has gone past the other hill, and it hasn't quite set. There's still sun coming through the trees, but it's not coming straight down. When it's coming straight down, when it's when it's 11:30 to about 2:30, it is toasty there. You don't want to be in the sun, buddy. Hey, good to see you, buddy. We have a new friend here, Rich Robinson, and I think it's Mrs. Robinson, because somewhere back in the thing it said was a female, I think. Anyway, Fish is there. So where are you, Fish? You in Arizona or Australia? Right now in Australia, it'd be near Christmas time, so it wouldn't be that hot. So you're probably in Arizona. Well, the beauty of this global warming thing is Nashville. Well, you're not, Fish, you're just down the road from me. You're in the valley. I'm up in the mountains, I'm near Johnson City. I'm about 50 miles from Johnson City. So that's where I'm at. There's the Noah Chucky and all those TVA lakes. So, one day you've got a long weekend and it's going to be a pretty one. You come visit, especially once the trees start to turn. We haven't had any rain this summer. And like I said, we're in a rainforest, so it's not that big a deal. We don't have a drought. But what makes the trees look really red is when in July and September, August and September, you have rain. And then in October and November, the trees are really red. They're still greener than green here. So 99. Wow. It was only in the 80s here, but that's still pretty warm for the tops of mountains. So, but it's great. Last night it was, 62. That's why I slept in my hammock. That was actually probably warmer than that. It was probably in the 70s. But it was a clear night, and the moon, by the time I got up there to look at the stars, the moon had already set. So, we'll stay in a cool place, Fish, that's for sure. So, at 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 33 seconds, I will say, I'll catch you guys later because I'm going to go run some errands. Okay? And I just told you some fun stories. 95 now. Holy moly. Ooh. Okay. 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 5 seconds. Put this little thing over here. Slancha. That's right, Sammy. Slancha. I love you guys. Tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow in the morning, maybe. I'm going to be in a place where I might be able to squeeze in a live chat. So, okay, gang, you have a beautiful evening. We're getting towards 33 seconds here. Twitchy, I love you, girl. You stay well. Everybody, you stay well. Have a beautiful day. Remember, good thoughts, good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes. Right? Push all of those negative thoughts away with good thoughts. Right? Remember to serve love's co-creation in every day and every way. Take the piece of the earth and you make it stronger. I hope. So say we all. See you later, Mrs. Robinson. RR. Okay. Here we go.